Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and hope you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I'm back today to give you a little look at the Tier 7 American turreted TD, the T25/2. I'm also going to have a look very, very soon at the Tier 7 non-turreted American TD, the T25 AT, and this is going to be a bit of a comparison shoppers list for these two tanks. I've had quite a few people over the years ask me about, well, not over the years, over the past year or so, ask me about which American TD line to grind, which is better, all those kind of things, which of these TDs in particular are the way forward, because they are very similar in some respects, mainly their names, and their speeds, and very different in others. The T25 AT is just a pure TD, and we'll get to that some other time. Today I want to talk about the T25 and 2, what it brings to the game, its strengths, its weaknesses, where it sits in the pantheon of Tier 7 TDs, and how you should be playing it to maximize it and how you shouldn't be playing it. Now let's set the stage here. The tank has a severe identity crisis. It is an almost medium. It's got outstanding top speed, very good acceleration numbers. It's got reasonable traverse, like quite good traverse for any kind of tank, but not amazing for a medium. It's 44.52 when you've got all the things maxed out and you're running a couple of provisions and your crew skills are good, which is good for traverse on your tracks. Your turret traverse is a paltry 21.5 degrees, which is horrific, but very much in line with a tank destroyer that's got a turret. But it doesn't have a tank destroyer feel to the gun. The gun is quite accurate, the aim time is reasonable, the bloom on turret traverse is large but not overly so, and the armor profile is very, very poor. And what you're going to find is the tank performs very poorly when pushed upon by super fast, heavy ramming style tanks like a Dracula, unless you can trade distance for damage. And if you do it wrong, like you can see here, we're in a tank that's a TD, and there's 4 TDs on our team. And I pushed up to the sniping spot in the middle, and they've pushed quickly across on the left, and the rest of the team's kind of just hung back. And this is a problem when you're driving 2 TDs in Division 2, by the way, in platoon. And I went so much better in this tank when Mojo, my platoon mate, was driving a heavy tank. Because the tank cannot be on that front line. It doesn't have the armor for it, and it doesn't have the ability like, say, a Stura ML or an ISU 152 or an SU 152 or even a Blaze to drop a 120mm shot at someone and do 400 plus alpha damage and then back off. It's got very good damage per minute numbers, but they come with time on target. Now this tank needs time on target, but it's got no armor. So you can see where I'm going here. If you've got no armor and you need time on target and you're on your own, then that's a horrible thing. A horrible thing. So the speed, while it is there, is not the kind of speed that you're going to use a medium for, where you can get out and turn heads and zip around and careen wildly past the non-turreted TDs that, you know, populate the back of the map. It's not that. It's a precise, thoughtful moment that you're going to move forward and take advantage of a situation, get behind a non-turreted TD and do some damage. I'll show you a clip of me doing that right here. And you're going to see throughout this, the successful things I do are in tandem. It's very rare that I am absolutely stock sole, all on my own. Now I have 2 mates who have wildly different opinions of this tank. Agon V loves this thing, absolutely loved it. Positive Waves, my Irish mate, hates it, thinks it's rubbish. And there's me, somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's a rubbish tank. Now, I had a conversation with Positive, and he was saying he just doesn't like the tank. And the numbers don't really stack up to support that it's amazing, but they don't really stack up to support that it's bad either. It's a tank that is middle of the road. And you can see here, it can do things like this when the situation is correct. But that's more the medium showing out in the identity crisis than it is the TD. And I want to get back to the gun, because the gun is where the rubber meets the road. It's a 90mm gun. It has 2800 damage per minute. And that means that when you hit point trade in this thing, you can come off very, very well. But, and here's the rub, It's not a gun that does good damage unless you're on target. You have to be on target all the time to get your DPM out there because its rate of fire is very good. 12.3 rounds a minute is excellent. And that means that while you can do nearly 3,000 damage per minute, you've got to be visible to do it. And that is tough in a tank that doesn't have an armor profile. So you've got to be very thoughtful, very precise with your movements. You've got to watch the map. You've got to make sure that you kind of leverage the team's heavies into damage. And if you can't do that, you end up in a tank that gets hit point traded on and everything that fires at you generally goes in. You're an open top turret with a little slab across the top. You're not there for the armor. You do have 10 degrees of gun depression and you're turreted as a TD, which means you can set shots up very, very successfully. Watch this. I'm gonna make a shot here, okay? And then I'm immediately gonna be spotted. Now, this is what I mean. That's peek-a-boom. Normally you could sneak out, take a big shot and peek back. But I can't there. I have to pull back off the top of the mountain because I'm spotted. That's what peek-a-boom is. Take a shot, come back, reload. 9.5 seconds is the reload time of your camo. So if you can go hidden behind a rock from all red eyes in 9.5 seconds, your camo will be reset and you'll be invisible again. So guess what the perfect reload time is for a tank? How about 9 seconds, about 10 seconds? If you can get a tank that can reload in 10 seconds, that allows you to go out, take a shot, pull back, go back in, bang, you're on. Guess what rate of fire that is? I mean, you're looking at about 6 rounds a minute. So your ideal tank is a tank that fires the most damage it can every 10 seconds if you want to play peek-a-boom. Because you can fire, pull back, disappear off the map, roll forward, fire again. Between 5 and 6 rounds a minute. Something like the Stir ML, for lack of a better tank, that does 460 alpha, can fire that gun, reverse, disappear, completely reset its camouflage, move forward and fire the gun again. And what that means is when you're in a good position like the top of that hill, you can hit that ARL, you can pull back, you can go forward, and you can hit again. Now, there is certainly an opportunity to take advantage of your DPM if you play smart and you play clever. Is it a plug-and-play tank like, for instance, a SU-152 or, you know, a Helsing or even an AT-15A or something like that, where it's all about either the armor or the overpowered part of the tank's gameplay? No, it's not. You've got to be a little bit cleverer about it. And I do get a lot of issues with people that seem to think that if I'm saying a tank's solid, it's bad. It's not. Look, the game's nuanced. It's nuanced for a reason. You can't have that degree of power creep where every tank is going to be good, because if you do that, and look, I go out here and I shoot the guy that's low hit points rather than putting another shot into a Tiger 1. And that's not incredibly good play. Like, that's something you should be doing. But if you're not watching low hit point targets and watching the map and leveraging off the heavies in front of you, this is probably going to be a tough tank for you. It really is. It's got some things going for it that allow that to take place, though. Now, those two things are speed and gun depression. It does 56 kilometers an hour. So straight out of the bat, you're able to keep up with mediums or heavies. So if you have a team that's medium heavy, you can push with them. If you have a team that is a whole lot of big nasty tanks like this one, you can push with them. And if you want to go hull down, you can do that as well. And by hull down, I mean sneaking backwards and forwards over the top of a ridge, waiting for a tank with a long reload like that KV-1S to take a shot, so you can sneak up and take a shot as well. But that's thoughtful gameplay. It's one of the reasons why when people first start the game, I recommend they go down a Russian heavy line, because a Russian heavy line, it has the armor and the derp and everything to compensate for people that don't really understand the mechanics of the game. It allows you to bounce shells, and more so than ever now with the current need for people to pen with standard rounds rather than premium. Now, the standard round being the choice of pen does hurt this tank because of all the TDs at tier 7, it's one of the lowest standard round penetration numbers. 170mm of pen will get the job done for the most part, but for a TD, it's not amazing. It's also... The turret traverse is just so poor for what it is. Like, I'd love it to have about 30 degrees of turret traverse, but if I'm honest, if you got the turret traverse up too high, you'd probably end up with a tank that was just too strong. And, I mean, that's why there's balance in the game. And although the fact is that we would love every tank to be really, really good, tanks have to be different, because if they're not different, you end up with a game that's very bland and very boring. And I'm not a fan of that. It does have a few sneaky things going for it. It's got very good view range, 264 meters, which is right up the Stur-Emil, the Jag Panther. That's got good view range as well. Your terrain reverse numbers are not amazing. They're reasonable, but they're certainly not amazing. The Jack in the Box here with really, really good terrain traverse numbers at this tier is the SU100 M1. It's got 0.9 on hard and tops out at 1.3 on soft terrain, which is really good. The 25 is 1.3 on hard and 2 on soft terrain. Anything with a terrain reverse number of 2 is not very, very good at all. Your horsepower per ton, likewise, is not particularly fantastic. 13.6 effective horsepower per ton, which is just rubbish. You know E25. The E25 runs along at 24.7 horsepower per ton, which is just madness. But you still, for all that, will get up to a fairly decent clip in a straight line, because it eventually will get there. The 56 kilometers an hour, while it is good, is not like you're going 56 kilometers an hour straight off the bat. So, they're the negatives and the positives. Playstyle wise, as I mentioned, follow tanks. Follow tanks. And don't be caught alone. You can deal with things like LTTBs and Draculas if you give yourself distance. Or you can serve your hit points to the point where even if they roll up and smash you in a ram, and then punch you again, like a Drac will do that all the time. Dracs are torture like that. You have enough hit points that you can out DPM them and just finish them off. You also need to really watch out for tanks that fire HE, big HE shells. Anything with 150mm or 120mm of gun can do some bad things to you, and you've got to be very careful of that, because bad things happen when you allow... And this is what I'm talking about. I didn't pen him there because I used AP, and the AP isn't particularly strong, but my traverse numbers are good enough that I can bully him a little bit and move around, and I kept a hold of my hit points, and I kept him at distance, so I saw him at range, and I was actually able to do something with that. If he had to come across the top of a hill and hit me really, really quickly at very, very close range, I would have been in big strife. Because, you know, that's the problem with this tank. It's also a nice tank in that it looks good. I like the way American tanks look, and it's got that almost like a Super Pershing cross Bulldog hybrid. It's got that turret on it that looks a little bit like an M46, which I find quite sweet. I think that is a tank look that I could buy into. And it feels good to drive. Like, it floats, the tracks look cool. It never feels out of place in the game. And if you're looking for a tank that's a purist tank, this is really it. Like, and this line is a good line. It ends in a couple of absolute crackerjack tanks. And look at this. I've driven up right up the back, put myself in a really odd spot, and I've got myself into a position where I can use my DPM. And as soon as I get a third shot off on this LTTB, I'm going to bail. I'm out of there. And that's it. You used a very short period of time to pop 3 quick shots off. Good damage. That's about 600 average damage in that little space of time. And then you move on and do something else. And the team moved. So I'm moving with them. This is the whole essence. Now, the reason this is better than just, say, driving a KV2 or something is because you can actually move with the team. You're fast enough. You can do 56 kilometers an hour, and you don't need to accelerate super quick to do it, which allows you to get out in the flanks and follow, and consistently follow, and keep up with the LTTBs and the Dracs, and keep up with your T44s and everything when you get up tiered. When you get up tiered, that 170 pen, by the way, becomes very problematic. You're going to find a lot of IS6s, a lot of Lurvers, a lot of T44s, a lot of those kind of tanks. Oh, there's Positives Waves' favourite tank. Loves the Jumbo. Look at that. That is Jumbo. Ruckus said it first. It looks like Jumbo the Elephant. That's the Churchill gun carrier. When you get up tiered, that 170 pen does become problematic. It's incredibly tough to not only not play a peak of boom playstyle against IS6s and Lurvers and T34s and Super Pershings and IS3 Defenders and IS3s and T32s, all these big, nasty, heavy tanks. It's also very hard to pen them. Anyway, lots of stuff coming up, guys. Lots and lots of stuff. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. By the time this video drops, World of Warships Blitz should be available on the Australian and the Asian iTunes stores. So make sure you download that. There's going to be more Warships content coming. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm going to do some Warships streams. I hope you're enjoying the streaming. It's a whole different thing, and I'm having a great time doing it. And it's great to interact with you guys, the community, as we roll forward. Before I go, have a look at this. See, this is exactly what I'm saying. IS6. I'm doing very well here. I'm leveraging off that T29. We were doing well in town. This is a nice shot. But as soon as the other guys come in, this thing just gets absolutely destroyed. Low hit point pool, no armor, 100mm guns, won't bounce anything. Despite the fact that we do a good job on the IS6, we are going to drop an awful lot of hit points very fast. So, I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thank you for watching. Look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield.